So as discussed earlier while talking about data mapping, let's today talk about regulatory compliances and what are the points under various compliances that directly get interacted with data mapping. Welcome to my YouTube channel where you daily see new content on data privacy. And as I said, let's talk about which of the points of regulations connect directly with data mapping exercise. Data mapping, a very simple, short, well, really depends how you do it, but a simple exercise that helps you identify the kind of personal data or the kind of data that you have in your organization, categorize it, sensitive, normal, high risk data, and keep a track of it. How does it flow across the organization? Someone collects it. How does he collect it? Someone moves it on with some processes. How does it? Indian DPDP Act 2023 says processing of personal data means collecting, storing, actually processing, sharing, and then finally deleting at the end of the day, right? I mean, at the end of the process or whenever the time limit was defined to be deleted is called processing of data, and you are liable to be compliant with DPDP Act if you do any of these with personal data, right? So you need to be prepared for it. Now let's look at the regulatory compliances. Very, very specific jurisdiction obligations. For example, GDPR says, please apply data minimization and purpose limitation. And while talking of data mapping, we talked so many times about the fact that an organization has data that has not even been looked upon for the last 10 years. So we don't know what is there. We don't know what is the purpose. We don't know whether it is beyond the purpose, less than the purpose. So until we know that, how can we apply data minimization and purpose limitation on it? CCPA, CPRA gives you stresses on consumer rights. GDPR also does. Why it is important with respect to data mapping? Well, I don't know where my data is. If someone asks me something about my data, how would I respond? DPDP Act talks of consent management. It talks about localization. It talks about data fiduciaries, responsibilities in terms of notices and policies, etc. So you need to be careful about that as well. So these are some of the key jurisdiction related obligations that we all need to follow, the fiduciaries need to follow, and therefore data mapping is required for handling each of these. So we talk about these jurisdiction and we say there are some classification concerns. For example, sensitive data has to have a special treatment. So you need to map your data as required towards sensitive data. Data, if breached, can harm an individual. Consent management cannot happen until I know what data I have and until I'm able to map it with the purpose. Once I map it with the purpose, then I can go back to the user and say, well, here's the purpose. Can you please provide me your consent? And at this stage, especially in our country, in India, where we are now launching up into data privacy, if we have data available with us, consent may not be. And the regulation says anything that you have collected before August 23, you need to get a consent, right? So you need to map your data, anything that you collected and processing now, right? After passing of the act, not the rules, right? So you need to take consent of even the older data that you have. So you need to understand with mapping, kya data bada bhai. Purpose limitation, again, it has to be for a lawful purpose and limited to the purpose. No excess data collected or kept with you. You need to map it very well with the respective destination countries where you think there is going to be a cross-border data transfer. What countries do they apply compliance measures like SCCs and BCRs, GDPR mandates, right? Standard contractual clause for any country, and BCR, binding corporate rules if you are sending it to your own branch office outside of Europe. Adequacy decisions, is the destination country adequate enough? Is your destination target country blacklisted? That's what India Act also says. We'll decide which country to send the data, right? So again, we need to be sure what data you have. What is the purpose? Are you sending it outside the country and why? Data subject rights, as I touched on earlier also. If I don't know where the data is, how would I respond back when someone would say, I want to access my data? I want to get it rectified. I want to get it erased. I don't know whether I have it also or not, right? So data mapping helps ensure identify the data, make it portable, that is put it and let the structure be portability and send it across. And rights fulfillment can be done, identify if automation can help meet any of the timelines. Timelines set, GDPR says 30 days. Indian DPDP Act is also setting up timelines for responding to any of the data subject rights. So timeline set, you need to be careful about it. How would I make a data secure if I don't know what I have with me? What level of security it needs? I might end up giving higher security to low risk or no risk data and might end up leaving sensitive personal data, which, like I said, 10 years old data, but it might be banking information of someone. Still valid when people use the same banker for ages altogether, right? So you're not mapped it properly, you don't know it's sensitive data you had. How can I plan storage as well as access to the data, security, encryption to the data? I don't know utilization of the data. How do I optimize if I don't know data? Then how do I optimize? GDPR mandates data should be kept till it is being processed. So how do I make sure of that? CCPA, CCRA say there have to be a clear data retention policy. CCPA and CPRA are for California. So you need to avoid collecting and retaining any data that you don't need. You need to define. GDPR says your purpose is over, delete it. Incident responses, at least the basic ones like data subject requests, etc., will become faster. Breach happening from an unknown area would make it difficult for you to identify the breach. Breach happening from a known area will make it easier and faster to respond back. So incident response would also get better if you do data mapping. And third party risk, again, you share data with third parties and you don't know what you are sharing and you don't know what they are sharing with you. How do you do due diligence of their working, right? So until you are very clear about the kind and type and volume of data that you have with you. So that's about data mapping and regulatory requirements. If you have done mapping properly, it would be under proper documentation with accountability and readiness for auditing as and when auditors or regulators come in. I hope you like the content of the video. Please press the bell and the like icon. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already done that, and share your feedback in the comment section. We still have another video to go about data mapping. Thank you.